I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Mark, and I was married to Lisa for about 2 years. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but I genuinely believed we had something real. She was the kind of woman everyone envied, beautiful, confident, sharp-tongued when she wanted to be, but seemingly loyal. That was until about a month ago when I started noticing little things that didn't add up. We were planning our wedding and everything seemed perfect. We had this beautiful family cabin up in the mountains, our little getaway spot, and I just left for a business trip. I was gone for a week, and that's when everything started to unravel. Lisa had been acting weird before I left, snapping at me for no reason, brushing off my calls and canceling plans last minute. She told me she was just stressed with work, but honestly, I had this gut feeling something was off. I kept telling myself I was paranoid, but it was gnawing at me. I decided to check her phone one night. I know, bad move, but I was desperate. I wasn't snooping for no reason. I just wanted to see if she was hiding something. When I grabbed her phone, I noticed a string of messages with her sister, Emily. They were pretty innocuous at first, talking about dinner plans, but then I saw one that made my stomach drop. It was late at night, and Lisa was texting Emily about how much she missed her, how lonely she felt, and how they needed to spice things up. Nothing explicit at first, but enough to make me feel uneasy. Then I saw a few photos. A couple of them were innocuous, selfies and stuff, but then I saw one that made my blood run cold. It was Lisa and her sister Emily. They were in bed together, sort of half-dressed, and the caption was something like, "Can't believe I almost married him." My mind just froze. I stared at that picture for what felt like forever. How could she have been lying to me all this time? How could she have been pretending to be this loyal wife when she was already cheating on me with her own sister? The betrayal was worse than I ever could have imagined. I didn't even tell her I saw it at first. I just sat there, stunned, trying to process what I just found. It was a betrayal on so many levels, by her sister, by myself for not seeing it sooner. But I knew one thing: I couldn't ignore this. I had to confront her, face her, get answers. I didn't want to believe it at first, but the evidence was right there. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted, was sleeping with my own sister behind my back. The shock, the rage, and the heartbreak all hit me at once, and I knew this was only the beginning of something much darker. The next day, I couldn't keep it inside anymore. I was furious, hurt, and honestly feeling pretty stupid. How could I have been so blind? I had just been about to propose to Lisa, almost married her 2 weeks ago, and now I found out she's been lying to me the entire time. The worst part: she had the nerve to act like everything was fine, like I was overreacting when I brought up her weird behavior. I waited until she got home that evening, and I was already boiling inside. She walked in, acting casual, as if nothing had changed. I looked her right in the eyes and just let it rip. "Lisa, I know what you did. I saw the messages, the pictures. You've been lying to me about everything, about how you feel about us, about your sister. How long has this been going on?" I could feel my voice trembling, but I forced myself to stay calm, at least on the outside. Her face twisted into a sneer. "Oh, please, Mark, you're overreacting. It's not what it looks like. You're just paranoid. Emily and I, hey, it was just sex, okay? It doesn't mean anything. We didn't want you to find out, but it's not your business. I'm sorry you're so insecure, but honestly, you're wasting your energy over something stupid." That was her go-to line: blame me, call me insecure, make it seem like I was just jealous or crazy. But I wasn't buying it anymore. The photos didn't lie. The messages didn't lie. And she was sitting there, lying through her teeth like it was nothing. I saw right through her act, and I knew she was just trying to cover her ass. I told her I did want to hear her excuses anymore, that I was done. I needed some space to process all this. She kept arguing, throwing her usual bitchy accusations, saying I was crazy for even thinking she'd cheat on me, that I had trust issues or some mental problem. But it was all bullshit. I could see it in her eyes: the guilt, the defiance, the sheer lack of remorse. I left the house that night, not because I wanted to, but because I knew I needed to get away from her before I did something I'd regret. I drove around for hours, trying to keep my head straight. I felt like my whole world had shattered, and I couldn't even bring myself to sleep in that house anymore. My mind kept circling back to the images, to her lies, to her smirk when she accused me of being insecure. At that moment, I realized I was dealing with a woman who was manipulative, bitchy, and completely untrustworthy. But the thing that stuck with me the most was that her stories kept changing. First, it was just sex. Then she said she was confused. Then she claimed I was being controlling. She's good at lying, I'll give her that. Every time I thought I had answers, she'd twist the narrative, making me question whether I was losing my mind. It was exhausting, and honestly, it made me feel like I was losing my grip on reality. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let her keep cheating, lying, and pretending everything was fine. Not in my life. Not anymore. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that damn picture of her and Emily in bed. I kept replaying her words, her sneers, her supposed explanations. Part of me wanted to believe she was just confused, that maybe she'd been pressured or manipulated somehow. But deep down, I knew better. She was a bitch, selfish, calculating, and willing to burn everything down to keep her secrets. I started digging deeper, trying to piece together what really happened at that cabin. I remembered how she'd insisted she was working late, that she'd been stressed about her job. That was all bullshit. I found her car's GPS data, which showed her heading straight to the cabin that weekend. I was gone, no work, no errands, just her and Emily. I even managed to get the key from her purse when she wasn't looking, just to see if there was any evidence of her sneaking around. What I found next was worse than I imagined. She'd been sneaking in and out, meeting her sister secretly, planning something. I found receipts from places near the cabin, coffee, snacks, even some bottles of wine, things she never mentioned. And I found a little hidden camera in the bedroom at the cabin. Yes, she had been recording herself with Emily, probably to keep some kind of secret stash. I couldn't believe the lengths she was willing to go, lying, hiding, even recording sex with her own sister. That's a level of betrayal I didn't think was humanly possible. At that moment, I realized I had been stupid. I had almost married her, almost made this woman my wife. And for what? To be lied to, cheated on, and used as a pawn in her sick, twisted game. I felt rage building inside me, an uncontrollable, burning rage. I was furious at myself for being blind, furious at Lisa for her lies, and even furious at her sister Emily for participating in this nightmare. How could they do this to me? How could they think they could get away with it? I knew I had to confront her again, but this time with harsher words, with every piece of evidence I'd collected. I wanted her to understand just how deep her betrayal ran. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done. I was done pretending I was okay. This wasn't just a fling. This was a full-blown affair with her sister behind my back. The fact that she lied so effortlessly that she thought she could just keep it hidden made me realize she was a different person entirely. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone cold and manipulative, and I was done being the fool in her game. That night I decided enough was enough. I set a plan in motion to confront Lisa once and for all. I had the evidence, screenshots, GPS data, the hidden camera footage. It was all I needed to finally lay everything out and make her face what she'd been hiding. I also knew I needed to be careful, not just for my own sake, but to ensure I didn't get played again. When she came home that evening, acting all innocent, I greeted her with a cold, hard look. I told her I had something to show her, something she wasn't going to like. I pulled out my phone and played every piece of evidence I gathered. Her face went pale, then angry, then defensive. She started to yell, calling me crazy, paranoid, and possessive, trying to dismiss everything I presented. But I just kept going, showing her the texts, the photos, the GPS logs, and the recordings. Her reaction was classic. She tried to spin it, to lie her way out. She said she was just messing around, that it meant nothing, that she was under a lot of stress and didn't know what she was doing. She even had the nerve to say I was abusive for bringing this all up. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I was done with her excuses. This was real, and it was unforgivable. She looked me in the eyes and said, "You don't understand. Emily meant nothing, it was just sex. I swear, Mark, I was just horny and she was there. It's not a big deal." I felt my blood boil. How could she be so manipulative? Her tone, her attitude, like I was some jealous, insecure fool. I wanted to scream at her, tell her she was a sham, but I held back. I knew I had to stay strong, even if every part of me wanted to break down and yell. I told her I was done, that this was the end. I told her I never wanted to see her again, that she'd destroyed everything we had built. She kept pleading, crying, and lying, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I just looked at her and said, "You've lied to me, cheated on me, and used your own sister to hide it. I don't trust you. I don't think I ever will again." It was the most honest thing I'd said in weeks. I packed a bag, told her to leave and not come back, and I walked out that door. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I couldn't stay with someone who lied and betrayed me like that. I felt empty, like I'd lost my sense of stability and security overnight. All I could do was sit in my car and try to process what had just happened. I was angry at her, hurt beyond words, and yet strangely relieved that I finally knew the truth. That moment, I realized how fragile trust is and how easily it can be shattered. I'd been a fool to believe her lies, but I was done being a fool now. The days that followed were a blur of confusion and reflection. I didn't sleep much, and I kept replaying everything in my head: her lies, her manipulations, the betrayal by her own sister. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, and every time I thought about what she did, I got angrier. Not just for cheating, but for how smoothly she lied, how she tried to gaslight me into thinking I was crazy. It's one thing to cheat, but to do it with your own sister and then lie about it. That's next level sick. I reached out to a few friends for support, though honestly, I didn't want to tell many people what had happened. I was humiliated, embarrassed, and I didn't want anyone thinking I was some fool who couldn't see what was right in front of him, but I needed to talk, so I confided in my best friend, Tom. He's the kind of guy who's always been straightforward, and he told me what I already knew deep down: she wasn't worth it. He said I deserved someone who wouldn't treat me like an idiot or lie about everything. That advice hit hard. Later that week, I decided I had to do something about the house. I couldn't live in the same place where her betrayal had happened. I wanted a fresh start. I found a small apartment close by and moved out. It was a difficult process, packing up memories, but I knew I couldn't stay in that toxic environment. Our house, felt like a prison, a reminder of her lies and the betrayal. As I was moving things out, I found even more evidence of her deception: small things she'd hidden, little notes she'd left, and strangely enough, a box of her stuff she'd been hoarding at her sister's place. Seeing all that made it clear how much she'd been hiding. At the same time, I started to work on myself. I went to therapy, something I probably should have done a long time ago, but I realized I'd been ignoring my feelings. Talking to a counselor helped me realize that I was more hurt than angry and I had to heal. I also cut off contact with Lisa. No texts, no calls, nothing. I didn't want her to keep stringing me along or trying to manipulate me again. I couldn't trust her, and honestly, I didn't want to see her anymore. The hardest part was facing the fact that I almost married her. That I was ready to spend my life with a woman who was capable of lying, cheating, and betraying in such a sick way. It made me question everything about my judgment, about what kind of person I was attracted to. But I also realized I'd been blind, and that I deserved better. I deserved someone who would be honest, loyal, and respectful. That's what I'm holding on to now: hope that I can find someone who won't completely destroy me with their lies. I've learned a lot from this nightmare. Trust is fragile, and betrayal cuts deep. But I also learned that I have strength I didn't know I had. Moving on is the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but I know I will. And one day I hope to look back at this mess and see it as a lesson, something that taught me I'm better off without that kind of toxic, fake love. I still feel the pain, sure, but I also feel a flicker of hope that I can rebuild my life piece by piece. Looking back, I realize how much I was blindsided by her charm and bitchy attitude, never suspecting that she was capable of turning our entire life into a lie. The worst part is, I almost married her. I was so close. It's a sick feeling to think about all the plans we made, the future I envisioned with her, and how it all came crashing down in a matter of days. I trusted her with everything, and she took that trust and threw it in my face. Now I'm left standing here, single, bruised, and wiser. I keep asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see the real her beneath the manipulative mask. The truth is, I was too blinded by love, too eager to believe the good in her. But betrayal doesn't care about love or hope. It cuts deep, and it leaves scars that take time to heal. I've come to accept that some things are better left behind. I lost the woman I thought I knew, but I found a new sense of clarity about what I want and deserve. I don't need someone who lies, who cheats, or who manipulates to get what they want. I want honesty, loyalty, respect, things that can't be bought or faked. Moving on from her isn't just about leaving the betrayal behind. It's about reclaiming myself and rebuilding my life based on what I now know I need. There's no sugarcoating it. This experience has shattered my trust in people, but it's also made me stronger. I've learned to listen to my instincts and not ignore those uneasy feelings anymore. I've learned that no matter how convincing someone seems, their actions will always speak louder than their words. And most importantly, I've learned that I don't have to accept betrayal as part of my story. I have the power to walk away and start fresh, even if it hurts like hell in the beginning. So, for anyone out there dealing with similar pain, I'll say this: don't ignore the signs. Trust your gut and don't settle for anything less than genuine honesty. Because once that trust is broken, it's almost impossible to fully repair. But you can move forward. You just have to be willing to face the truth, no matter how ugly it is. And in the end, even the deepest wounds can become scars that remind you of your strength, your resilience, and your ability to survive even the worst betrayal.